right. Well, here we are again. Elaine Marolakos Edelson with Astrology Mojo and Transformational Astrology want to help you get your mojo back. How will we do that? Oh, there's so many ways. So many methods. So I'm just going to get organized. Actually, I'm organized. I just want to settle in. It's been a very chaotic couple of days. And today we're going to be talking about all that angst and anger. What do you do? What do you do with it? And are you ready to let it go is the question. Or how do you let it go is the bigger question that people ask me. Oh, Elaine, what do I do? So when I talk about astrology, sometimes it branches off into different aspects of a person's experience. And that experience might entail emotions or dreams or herbs or mystical, magical, unnameable, illusory things. And so sometimes I'll be very pointed in talking about specific angles and aspects in astrology. And remember, folks, the planets don't make you do anything. We live in a cooperation with the cosmos so that when the planets make a move, you feel it. And when you make a move, the planets reflect that by way of aspects and angles in the universe. And so, I like to look at people and sometimes just at a dinner party or wherever I am, at a library or something, and just by watching them interact with other people or what they do or just the vibe I get from them, I like to guess. Oh, I wonder if they're a Leo sun. Maybe they're a Virgo rising. I'm not usually validated because I don't go ask them, excuse me, when's your birthday? But it's fun because that practice for me builds up my intuition. And that's being in the flow. And when you're out of the flow, as I talk about astrology, then that's when we start talking about different emotional dynamics, different relationship issues, and all relating back to who are you? Who would you like to be? And how are you handling your situation? And, anger is a big one, I think. People will say to me, oh, I've got a Mars in Libra. I don't like to get angry. And I'll say, okay, that's pretty much what a Mars in Libra might represent. But a Mars in Libra, as Mars represents action, anger, aggressiveness, sports, metal, weaponry, the head, blood, different parts of up here, but and sexual appetite and impulsive impetuousness. But when I look at a person and say, well, how were you raised to deal with your emotions? Were you allowed to have emotions? Maybe you weren't. And, just like your own way of dealing with something is your personal style. When I look at the planets and I will just look randomly at, okay, Mars in a sign in a person's chart, I don't automatically assume that that's who they are, even though Mars is representational of action or anger. And being in whatever sign. So if it were Mars in Libra, I might look and go, oh, you have the potential, right? So potential being the key word. So what I want you to understand about astrology is that it's not doing it to you. It's not always the ultimate definition, because as you change, so do the definitions of the planets and the aspects and the signs. I know that can be confusing. So let's keep it simple. Who's here today? Come say hello to me. And what's your sign? What's your birthday, month, and day? I don't need the year. So we're going to be talking a little bit about anger and what that does to you when you feel it, especially when you don't recognize it. So it's going to be really important for you to grasp that anger is a built-in mechanism to protect you from harm. And it's also an emotional reactionary state to something that feels like a threat. So if you walk by someone and they say something that is off-putting or is potentially insulting, you might say, hey, knock it off in your head, but you may not say anything verbally. You just ignore. But yet you go home and you can't stop thinking about that person who said that thing. And why would they do that? Are they insane? Is there something wrong with them? We want to judge. We want to get clear. We don't get it. We don't get it. Or maybe it's someone you do know and they've crossed a boundary and it really bothers you. What do you do with that anger? Well, what most people do is they ruminate over this happened, then that happened, then this happened. But why did that happen? Why would they do that? And I can't let it go. And I'm so pissed off. And and then the retaliation or the wound sets in, or the head casing and trying to figure it out. So a lot of times our anger becomes a thought process. Or for some people, it's immediate reaction. So somebody accidentally steps on your toes at the office, in the subway, at a dinner party, and, your first thing is, ow, hey, and I don't mean literally steps on your toes. I mean, says or does something that puts you off, or, you have a reaction, any kind of, hey, what the heck, a knee-jerk reaction. So when that happens, there are some people just automatically retaliate. Hey, and they get defensive and they get offensive. So defense, offense, right? There's always going to be an extreme in an extreme emotional experience. The highs and lows come into play. So what I think is really important is that if you really want to do something to make any kind of transition with how you feel, especially the icky feelings like anger, it's important to recognize when you're feeling it, that you actually feel it instead of dismissing it. That's the first step. Now, a lot of times, when our kid was young, and even now, but young, and getting to know different emotions, and I would say, oh, why, you seem like you're sulking. So I would look at the pattern to see, what does Aaliyah do when they're angry? So it would be sulking, it would be not making eye contact, it would be wanting to watch television. So that would signal to me that something was wrong. And when I'm angry, and then I would tell Aaliyah, we would tell Aaliyah, we don't want to ignore our feelings, so we're not going to watch TV until we actually feel our feelings. And that's going to be important. And then I would say the next thing is, if it's really in there and you can't access it, go ahead and punch a pillow just to bring it up so that you can let it go. Because a lot of times people might say, well, if you just count to 10 and take a deep breath and let it go, it's gone. Now, some people can actually do that. I was not one of them growing up. I don't know. Were you? Sometimes it was a delayed reaction. I wouldn't get angry until later. I would deal with the situation, whatever it was. I might have accidentally stepped on someone's toes, said something that that made them unhappy, and my first thing was, I'm so sorry. I don't want to. So I was apologetic. That was the first thing. Hi, Star. Hey, Dean's here. And then later on, I would think about what just happened. And then slowly the anger would creep to the surface, and I would realize that I was so angry because I really hadn't done something wrong. Or if I did, I wanted to get defensive about it. Or if someone had said or done something to me, or I witnessed something, and it wasn't personal, but I witnessed something, and it pissed me off, sometimes I would know it right away, because here's the key word. If it's impersonal and you're not attached to it, your feelings are readily available. So you see something, you go, oh my gosh, did you just see that? That's crazy. What did that guy do? Why did he throw a brick? Once I was in the car with my mom when she was still alive, and we were driving somewhere, and we were waiting third car in line at a red light. And the lights were changing, and as they were, a big pickup truck came right through the intersection as another car was turning toward us. And that big pickup truck slammed into this little car, spun it around. I screamed for the person, and I watched in slow motion. I had nowhere to go because, there were cars in front of me, cars to the right, and cars behind me. And the car spun. And the rear view mirror broke apart, and the car skidded within inches of us. And I just, held my breath, put my hand on my mom. You okay? Yes, I'm okay. And I look at this poor man who was stunned, and the driver took off, the one who hit him. And I then became, I was very clear-headed, and I thought, okay, and I opened the window, are you okay? And somebody came to his aid, and then the cars were moving again, and I thought, okay, there's nothing I can do. I'm going to go. Another car actually chased the pickup truck that plowed into this guy to go get a license plate. So the community was in action, and this man seemed okay. He wasn't bleeding. Somebody stopped to help him, and I turned and I left. But I thought my immediate response was, hold my breath. Are we going to get hit? So in my mind, I'm thinking, white light, to surround the car. And we were surrounded and protected. And then white light for the guy to protect him from any further harm. And then I thought, wow, what a cheap crap thing for that guy to do and drive off. The lack of consciousness to do that, right? Had it been me, had I been hit, I'm sure I would have been stunned, maybe in shock and startled. And a lot of times when we're faced with something that's angry or produces an angry feeling, we're not present because we're just dealing with the situation. Somebody screams at you, and you're startled. And if you're raised by someone who is a yeller and they scream at you, or they hit you, or they take away privileges that are unjustified, and you try to negotiate that, you learn how to deal with your anger in a specific way. When I was young, I couldn't handle any anger because when I heard it, I felt it. And it was so big that it threw me. So what I learned how to do, and I didn't know this until years later when I was with a friend, and how old was I? Let me think. Maybe I was 27 or 27-ish. And what happened was my friend was angry about something, not with me. And they were just, and this happened and that happened and his voice elevated and he was yelling. And I had this amazing epiphany because he was yelling. I realized suddenly I couldn't hear him. And then in a split second, I realized that throughout my life, whenever my parents got really angry with me or just with each other or with that whatever, and they yelled, I went deaf. And I had this realization while my friend was going off and I couldn't hear a word he was saying. And I was sitting there, actually I was standing behind a counter and I was going to offer him, something to drink. And I'm nodding my head and agreeing with him. And he was, gesticulating and this happened and that happened. And I was like, oh, wow, yeah. And then I thought, I'm going deaf. So I had to reverse it in the moment and realize it's not an attack against me. So I want you to think about when you get angry. What's the first thing you want to do? And a lot of times it's we want to cause harm, not really, but we just are, there's so much intensity and it builds into a spiral and a spin that boom, it's an explosive kind of feeling, right? But most of us, we don't want to hurt anyone, so we swallow it, we hold it in, we temper it, we the straight-lipped line, the gritting of the teeth, the the gnashing of teeth. And what do we do with that? It can be intense. So I think it's important. Hey, Leah's here. I think it's important to recognize when you start to feel anger that you step aside, become a little bit detached and say, wow, anger is present. Let me just take note of what I'm doing. And you might be smiling, right? Not even showing that you're angry because you're afraid of your anger. You might just be, okay, and put a wall between you and another person. Your expression might change when you're angry. But if your expression and your words don't match, something's incongruent, right? So the first thing you want to do is pause for just a second. If something happens, you see something in the world, on the news, you witness something across the street, a family or a family member or a friend or someone says or does something that really upsets you, inhale, exhale. Man, I think I'm really pissed off. Wait a minute, and feel your feelings. Feel it through, sift through them, comb through them, and give yourself an opportunity to acknowledge what it is. Okay, not to stay there. And of course, but if you need to talk about it. If no one's in the room and there's no one you can call to say, I need a reality check because I think I'm angry, but am I justified? See, that's the thing. We start qualifying why I should or shouldn't be angry because when we're little, we're taught not to make that face. And don't you get angry with me, young lady. And if you do that again, I will smack you from here to Sunday. This is common in a lot of households. So then we learn how to push down our feelings. So when you're dealing with anger, and I say this, why? Because Mars, the planet that represents anger, aggression, metal, weaponry, sex, sports, the head, blood system, fevers, infections, Mars is in the sign of Cancer, and Mars is a fiery sign. Cancer's a watery sign, and very emotional. So when you put the two together, and I've talked about this previously, but when you put the two together, you come up with, I don't know how I feel about that. Did that just happen? And then it builds, and then suddenly there's like this, I want to put my fist through a wall. And what do you do with that in the middle of the night? You're going over it and over it and over it, and you can't calm down. You can't calm down. And your body's churning and the cortisol is spiking and you're just, yeah. It happens. I'm not saying don't do that. What I'm saying is acknowledge your feelings, feel your feelings, and name them. I'm angry and I don't like it. And here's why I'm angry. Let's be articulate with our words. And if you have to grope for words, write it down, and this is where sometimes when you have a friend you can talk to about it and they immediately want to come to your side and go, yeah, they were a jerk. I can't believe they did that. That's not the whole point of why we express, or it need not be the point if you really want to grow through your emotions so that you can learn how to detach, not become removed emotionally. So you're just, this person watching and not involved. It has more to do with learning to let go by acknowledging what's happening. And the closer you can do that in the moment that it's happening. And I had an experience yesterday and I was somebody talked at me instead of with me. And it was a dictatorial kind of a conversation. And I kept trying to, input. And they would ask me a question and I would start to answer. And then they would interrupt me and continue on and tell me what it was instead of asking me what I felt and what I thought. And so after an hour of that, it had built up that, to answer your question, and then boom, I got, blam, cut off. And so I was with my family and we were in the car and I said, listen, I know you're going to understand this. I just need to take 30 seconds, 10 seconds and do this. And I grabbed my daughter's jacket that was in the back seat. I stuck it in front of my face and I screamed into the jacket. Just to get the vibration of the, I couldn't get it out. I couldn't say what I needed to say. I was dismissed. And it was an energy that came at me like a battering ram. That's what it felt like a typical Mars energy, assault on my senses. And me being a little extra sensitive on top of that, I wasn't intellectualizing. Yes, well, I see your point. And it was like, I felt like riddled with machine gun bullets. And so I just screamed and got the initial part out. And then later on, it was an odd kind of thing. And then I talked about it a little bit more. And then I just let it diffuse. And then I woke up and I was absolutely happy. So it takes a little bit of mindfulness to really pay attention to what you're feeling so that you can get the anger out, right? So listen, folks, if you want to know where your Mars is in your natal chart, not the transiting Mars in Cancer, but where it is in your chart, you can go to the link that is, oh, wait, it's not there. You can go to, let me post it for you. You can go to, we have a brand new link, and there it is. Ta-da! You can go to astrologylifechart.com and you can get your free birth chart, and then you'll be led to a page that where I made something very special just for you and your sun sign. I'm going to take a quick drink break. So who's here? Come talk to me. Hey, Leah's here. How do you deal with your anger? What is your initial reaction or response to something? And the more personal it is, the deeper it goes, the harder it is to be articulate and clear. And I've had a lot of practice, right? I really started practicing for the past 30 years on being very present with my feelings as much as possible. And sometimes I feel sideswiped, and then it takes me a moment, and then it starts to build, and then I say, hey, Kathleen, Cancer. All right. July 16th. And then sometimes I just have to wait a minute, how do I really feel about that? I'm not certain. Because if you're in your head, you're not feeling your feelings. And that's a safer place to be, especially for people who experience a continuous type of abuse, a verbal abuse. They get defensive, and we are amazing and remarkable beings. The creatures that we are, we have such a defense system. And Mars being this aggressive, assertive, it can be very spontaneous and happy and fun and light. And have this big blah, and then it lets it go, and hey, let's be best friends. But in the sign of Cancer, sometimes for some people, the experience that they feel is hidden emotions. It's rumbling deep down below. And was somebody just snarky with me? And so you're not certain. And so sometimes there's a lot of misunderstanding, right? There's a lot of misunderstanding. So you want to get clear by just taking a deep breath, just relaxing in a moment. And sometimes we're so keyed up we can't, or we don't want to, because anger can be very addictive. We can latch on to the feeling because it feels like we're in control of something. And I want to be pissed off at that person because they did this to me. And what if I did that to them? And how would they feel? And so then the melodrama, has a venue. And then it's got its own stage. All right, I'm going to pull a card for everyone. So people, how do you deal with your anger? What do you do when you get angry? I'm going to pull a happy card for everyone. Forget your troubles. Come on, get happy. Interstitial music. La 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 la. Not very well. Well, sometimes it's okay. When you get angry, it's important to remember that anger is usually, in most cases, not all, but most cases, a cover-up for sadness. And sadness covers up the wound. So when do you feel hurt? If we start from the top down, anger is a great defense, because then we can just get, hey, don't say that. Don't talk to me. Don't do that. Quit it. But deep down, we're crying because we're saying, hey, why did you do that? That really hurt me. I feel betrayed. Or I feel like I got sucker punched. Good. Working on that. I'm proud of you. Okay. Vibration. Vibration is the card that I picked today. Yeah. I do that every time and I still can't get it right. Okay. Vibration. What's your vibration? The vibration, if you could look at a musical instrument on a screen where you just see like that, like the music output, and you just see it bouncing, right? In a recording, you just see it bouncing. If you were to scream loudly in an operatic fashion, it would look like anger, If you were to whisper, it's very small. So if you can start to visualize your feelings and everything in your body. Remember, we talked about feelings and emotions a few times ago. And the feeling is merely the barometer. It just measures what's happening. So you're hot, cold, happy, sad. That's the feeling. The emotion of anger is such that it vibrates in so many places on so many levels, and then it looks to attach, and you look to attach it to experiences, Well, I was waiting for him to call. He never called me back. Now what am I supposed to do? I had to get this thing filed, and I had to get to the end. I never, and so and we go through this whole thing of wanting to blame. Blame puts us in a position of control. So that's perfectly natural, but in order to make the transition out of that, it's taking a deep breath. And I want you to imagine that person that you think has angered you as they start to shrink down, and then they're 3 years old and their feet are dangling off a chair and they don't know. They just did this thing. So that if you need to evoke compassion, and I hesitate to use the word forgiveness because we're always forgiving something, right? And it becomes the habit and the pattern, other than seeing that we don't have to. That's a vibration in and of itself. We're always forgive. We're going to forgive, we're going to forgive. But I won't forget, I'll forgive, but I won't forget, because it comes with a stipulation. So instead of forgiving, you're using some form of compassion to help other people. Hi, Kate's here, and Rhonda, to alter your energy, your vibration. Remember, the card I just pulled was vibration. To take your vibe that you have and move it. And that's the whole point of being on this earth. If you can move your vibration with love and compassion, it doesn't mean you don't articulate your feelings. It doesn't mean you don't set a boundary. It doesn't mean it's okay for them to do what they did. It means you are learning how to move your energy. Like, you get all Dr. Strange on that stuff. And you move it with compassion. So that you have your initial, okay, something just happened. I don't know how I feel, so I'm going to think about it. And I'm going to lie awake at night, and I'm going to go over and over and over and over and over and over and over that conversation because something's bothering me. I don't know what it is. And then suddenly it hits you. I'm really hurt by that. They pissed me off so much. I can't believe they did, and then you go off, and then the story becomes the next thing. And in the story, you share with your friends. And then I said this and he said that. Can you believe that? That shut the front door. Things I don't want to say. And then you get stuck in the story. We don't want to get stuck in the story. The story is meant to help you deflate the feeling, okay? Get clear and articulate. I feel this way. And something happened like that recently to me as well. Someone did something that I was not expecting, felt sucker punched, and immediately I felt this surge move through me. And I didn't know what word was attached to the surge, except it was big. And I was not feeling happy. So I thought, is it anger? What is this? I think I'm angry. Why would that person do that? I can't believe this person did that. That makes me really upset. And so it took me a while I needed to talk about it, relax, meditate, let it go, focus on something else. And it came up. But I immediately related to this person. I could understand. But I also, expressed myself in a very kind and compassionate way. This is what you did. I didn't appreciate it. I didn't ask why they did it, because they could come up with a million different reasons why. That's sometimes we have, I used to demand an apology from people. I need you need to apologize to me. And that's how I felt, 30 years ago, because in that the apology meant recognition for me. But now I realize it's not what I need. I don't need to know why you did something that really upset me. I need to express myself in a kind way. Okay, you did this thing, I said to this person, and I'm not sure why, but what's bigger is that I need to know that you won't do it again. And this person said, very sorry, it wasn't my place, I didn't mean to do it, and I won't do it again. Okay, great, I got that assurance. Then I moved that aside. And I said, and I understand there was a lot of details and circumstances that I'm not relating, but I understand that the why of the person, actually I didn't understand the why of the person. I understood that the end result of what this person had done was something not positive, but it was on the lines of compassion. And I thought, okay, well, when you do something and you're not sure why, you just do it, but then it turns into something positive, then you reevaluate. What could I really say? I didn't want you to do that. Just please don't do it again. Okay, the person said. And then it took a while for me. I had to talk about it with a friend and text it to somebody else, and then not to be validated, just to say, this is what upset me. And then I understood while I was, texting and talking, I understood. I felt betrayed. And the betrayal is what angered me. That this person would do something that, kind of sideswiped me. And I thought, wow. And then once I let that go and I realized, okay, for whatever reason, I don't need to know. That's part of the melodrama. I really don't need to know. What matters now is, what do I choose to do with how I feel? I understand that they did it. I expressed myself. They said they wouldn't do it again. And I had to let it out in a few different ways. And then I had to make peace with it. So how do you make peace with something? If you don't know how? Or because most people want the why. Why did you do that? Why? Because they think they'll be understanding. Well, I did it because, and you're never going to get an answer. That suffices, really, because deep down, that's not what you're really looking for. The why offers some validation, but you need to validate your own feelings. Does that make sense? Let me know that makes sense, because if you're working on, like Kathleen says, working on that, yes. If you're working on how you really feel, especially with anger, because it doesn't feel good. We never really want to feel anger because we think harm is associated with anger. And harm, for other people, when we're kind people, we're always told, don't get angry, it's okay, it's all right, you don't need to cry. Yeah. Well, if you feel like you need to cry, you go cry. Because, you don't want to squelch it. But when you get to the point of saying, I am really paying attention to how I feel, then something comes in, makes you a little angry, and you say, oh, wow, I wasn't expecting that. Oh, I feel crappy. How do I really feel? Explore that. Explore that sensation. How do I really feel? And then articulate it, so that it's not just in your head keeping you up all night. And then, see, the whole goal is to make peace with it so that you can let it go. And detachment from that emotion will help to raise your level of awareness and compassion. So that if you have to look at somebody like they're a baby, so that you don't haul off and just, sucker punch them because you're so pissed off. Or in your mind, you're like exploding things because and all that hurts you. It hurts you. You don't want to hurt yourself in the process, right? So let me just check the chat. Yes, makes sense. Okay, good. So think about how in the next, whatever, couple of weeks, especially because there's going to be a lot of energy swirling around and people are going to do things that piss you off. And is it more than normal, more than usual, more than typical? I don't know. But it's going to feel like more. It's going to feel like more. So, and it can be as simple as you're getting on an elevator and somebody steps in front of you to get there first. And suddenly you are triggered and you're like, what the did you have to do that? But you're smiling and, holding it together and pressing your butt, pressing the button. And so little things like that are going to trigger you. So what I'd like you to do in those moments is you visualize, if it entails or deals with a person, visualize that person as a little kid and they just don't know any better. Then you inhale and you exhale and you ask yourself, why am I so attached to this feeling that wants to put me in a position of power? Right? What else could I do? Maybe I could send that person light, a color, a sensation of joy. And whether or not they feel it, get it, acknowledge it is not the issue. It's about what you need to do. Now, if someone is actually causing you physical harm, you get out, get to help immediately, But I'm just talking about in the everyday world. Pay more attention now as the months progress with the upcoming solar and lunar eclipse and the Mercury in retrograde, right now Mars in Cancer. It's a combination with Pluto and Saturn in Capricorn retrograde. It's more about going in on deep levels to really find out what's bothering you. What's bothering you? Your vibration is what it's all about. No, and it doesn't have to be a negative thing, Rhonda. It just means that somebody might come by your desk and say at work, hey, can I borrow that pen? I'll get it right back to you. And you say, sure. And they borrow the pen and they get it right back to you, but it's broken. And that's the only pen you have. And you have to finish something. And now there's like this urgency. So what do you do with that? Well, and I'll tell you, the endorphins that become engaged and activated when you move out of attachment to a negative feeling, to a neutral, to a positive feeling, it's like an elixir that is so magical and it's a wonderful thing. So instead of focusing on, oh my God, doom and gloom is coming. Elaine said the eclipses are here. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying pay extra attention to when you start to spin, to when you feel angry. And you could be the only one in your apartment or house all day long and suddenly you just feel so ticked off. What are you going to do with that? Huff and puff and throw things out and try to blow the house down. No. You're going to take a deep breath. You're going to articulate, gee, I think I feel angry right now. Why? Who cares? What the question is, do I choose to move into compassion? Just because I didn't get what I needed 37 years ago, I'm going to hang on to that and then carry it forward. That's heavy luggage, right? We don't want to carry it forward. We want to look for what is the thing. First, it's the acknowledgement, and then it's the commitment to moving that energy with love, and if you're the only one there, it's going to be you. This is all you anyway. So even if you're dealing with another person and they might have done or said something that bothers you, well, then it takes a little bit more involvement because you don't want to hurt their feelings, or you want to set a boundary. You want to make sure that you're heard and validated. So there's a lot of other psychological stuff that goes with that. But I'm just talking about you feeling. I want you to feel your feelings, articulate your feelings, name them without getting stuck in the melodrama, and then put something wonderful in its stead. What could you do? A moment of light, a moment of color. Pick up a crystal or, something that makes you happy, play with it. You listen to 10 minutes of music and you're not focused so much on, I gotta stay in this place, because that is the illusion of control. No, let it go. Open your hands and say, I give it up. I give it up. I let it go. I'm looking for peace. How do I do that? I want to move from anger and wounded and sad and upset to neutral to positive compassion. What's the most I can put into the world right now? Well, maybe you need a nap. Maybe that's the most. You take a break. Maybe you smile at someone. Guaranteed, when you're in a crappy space, you'll attract more stuff that pokes at that energy, that vibration. It's all a vibration. What do you want to do with it? Make it a happier vibration. That's all. And it doesn't mean ignore your feelings and be happy all the time. Like, life is wonderful and great, and I'm so happy. I'm going to hand out flowers. No, not at all. It's small incremental steps toward that happiness. Now, remember, you can go and get your birth chart and I posted it, and I'm going to do it again. I'll put one more link in. There it is, astrologylifechart.com. And it's complimentary, and you can see where Mars is in your chart. And a brief rundown: Mars is action-oriented, energy, sports, sex, weapons, metal, the blood system, the head, sometimes the eyes. That's also a Neptune thing. And the way you move your energy, the way you act. Okay. And so in a particular sign, I'll talk about that next on Tuesday, June 11th. I'll be talking about what it looks like with Mars in different signs, and how it tells you, especially if you get your chart, how it tells you what your basic MO is in the way you act. And it's fun to know. It's fun to know these things. Now, let me see. There have been many questions, and I'm just going to wrap up with this. Many questions about, I've talked about stickers on the back of our technology, our computers, our phones, our Wi-Fi, and tablets, whatever we have. We get these stickers, and I don't have the name. I just have the sticker. So I'm going to hold it up, and I'm not sure if you could see. This is what the sticker looks like. There. And it's an EMF sticker so that it helps to reduce EMF waves that come out of your cell phone. And so it's good to have your phone and your tablet in airport mode if you're not using it, so there's less of the EMF, and that's also a frequency and a vibrational thing. So I like to keep that away from me. I keep the sticker on. I'll put it in airplane mode if I'm not using my phone, and that's less vibration for me to get frustrated over, because sometimes it's not a person or an action. It's actually the waves of life moving right through you, and you just feel so overwhelmed or tired or even excited or happy, and you don't know why, and these things will come and go. So the less intensity of frequency that comes at you, it's calmer, it's quieter, it's easier to deal with your life and who you are and what you've come here to create. Okay, folks, so thanks for showing up, and I'll be back on Tuesday, June 11th at 10 a.m. And remember, even though this is specific to Mars, the information is evergreen. And you can use it at all times in your life. And that's the point. We want to educate, empower, enlighten, so that you walk away feeling, I got this. And you do. Be well, be sparkly, and I will see you next time. Thank you.